The Vanishing of Tom Dalinger. It was a rainy Thursday night when Jack Dalinger stood at the entrance of the old apartment building. His trench coat flapped in the wind, the droplets of rain splattering against the darkened sidewalk. The city felt empty, its usual hum of noise drowned by the relentless rain. Jack took a deep breath, then rang the doorbell. The door creaked open, revealing a woman in her late 20s. Her eyes were red, as if she hadn't slept for days. She was holding a glass of water, but Jack could tell her hands were shaking. She wiped away a tear as she greeted him. "You must be Jack Dalinger," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "I'm Laura. I need your help." Jack stepped inside, his shoes squelching against the wet floor. The apartment was dimly lit, with the faint smell of old books and stale air. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling, casting long shadows across the room. "What happened?" Jack asked, his voice steady, his eyes scanning the apartment. He had dealt with cases like this before, people disappearing without a trace. But something about Laura's demeanor felt different. "My father is missing," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's been gone for 3 days, and no one knows where he is. I'm scared that something terrible has happened." Jack nodded, his mind already working through the possibilities. Tom Dalinger, Laura's father, was a billionaire businessman, powerful, successful, and well-known. It wasn't like him to just disappear. "Tell me everything," Jack said. Laura took a deep breath, then began recounting the events leading up to her father's disappearance. Tom had been acting strangely in the days before he vanished. He had seemed distant, as if he were hiding something. He'd even mentioned feeling like he was being followed. Laura didn't think much of it at first, but then his phone stopped working, his emails went unanswered, and no one had seen him since. "I don't know who to trust anymore," Laura said, her voice trembling. "I think someone's after him, and now they're after me." Jack could sense the fear in her words, but he couldn't help but wonder if there was more to this story than she was letting on. He knew from experience that people didn't always tell the whole truth. He needed to dig deeper. "Let's start with your father's last known location," Jack said, pulling out his notebook. "Where did he go the last time you saw him?" Laura hesitated for a moment, then said, "He went to a meeting at an old warehouse near the docks. It was supposed to be a business deal, but I think it had something to do with something illegal." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Illegal?" "I'm not sure," she admitted. "But I think he got involved with some dangerous people." Jack's mind raced as he processed the information. Dangerous people, an illegal business deal, a missing billionaire, it all sounded like the makings of a classic mystery. He'd seen enough cases to know that things were rarely as simple as they seemed. He was about to ask more questions when Laura suddenly stiffened. "What is it?" Jack asked, noticing her change in demeanor. "There's something here," she said, her voice barely audible. She walked over to the desk and picked up a piece of paper. It looked like a letter, torn at the edges. Laura unfolded it slowly and handed it to Jack. It was written in black ink, the words bold and direct. "Everything comes back to the past, Jack. He must die." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The message was cryptic, but the implications were clear. Someone wanted Tom Dalinger dead. But why? "This was on my father's desk," Laura said, her voice shaking. "I found it the day he went missing." Jack's mind raced. He looked at the letter again, then glanced around the room, taking in every detail. He could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on him. "Stay here," he said firmly. "I need to investigate the warehouse your father visited." Laura nodded, her face pale with worry. "Be careful, Jack. Please." Jack left the apartment and headed for the docks. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still slick and wet. The warehouse was located on the outskirts of the city, a place where few people dared to go. It was dark and abandoned, the kind of place where deals were made in the shadows, away from prying eyes. As Jack approached, he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. The warehouse door was slightly ajar, and inside, there were faint shadows moving. Someone was there. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, his footsteps muffled by the wet ground. He crept closer to the door and peered inside. What he saw made his blood run cold. There, standing in the center of the room, was Tom Dalinger, alive, but barely. He was tied to a chair, his face bruised and bloodied. His eyes widened in shock when he saw Jack. "Jack!" Tom gasped, his voice weak. "Get out of here. They're coming for you." Before Jack could respond, a voice echoed from the shadows. Too late, the voice said, low and menacing. "You should have stayed away, Dalinger." From the darkness, two figures emerged, their faces hidden behind masks. Jack knew right away that they weren't just ordinary criminals. They were professionals, people who wouldn't hesitate to kill if it meant protecting their secrets. Jack took a step back, reaching for his gun, but before he could react, one of the masked figures lunged at him. The struggle was brief, but brutal. Jack managed to fight off his attacker, but just as he was about to free Tom, the second figure stepped forward, gun in hand. "I warned you," the figure said, his voice cold. Before Jack could make a move, the sound of sirens filled the air. Police cars skidded to a halt outside the warehouse, their lights flashing in the darkness. The masked figures froze, momentarily distracted by the approaching officers. In that moment, Jack seized his chance. He lunged at the second attacker, knocking the gun out of his hand. The man fought back, but Jack was faster. He took him down with a single punch. The police burst into the warehouse, and the remaining attacker was quickly apprehended. Tom Dalinger, still shaken but alive, was untied and rushed to safety. As the authorities took control of the scene, Jack turned to Tom. "What happened, Tom? Who were those people?" Tom looked at him, his eyes filled with regret. "It was my past, Jack. I got involved with some people I shouldn't have. I thought I could escape it, but they found me. And now, they were going to finish what they started." Jack nodded, his mind still working through the pieces of the puzzle. "You should have told someone, Tom. You should have trusted me." "I didn't want to bring anyone into this," Tom said, his voice hoarse. "But I see now that it was too late." As the police led the suspects away, Jack knew that this case wasn't over. There were still questions to be answered, and a lot more to uncover. But for now, Tom Dalinger was safe. And that was all that mattered.